Welcome, brethren, to part two of our series. It's entitled Addressing the Strange Turn of Events from UPA7.org, part two. And in part one, as some of you have witnessed already, we addressed part of the accusations from Brother Edstrom and pre 11th hour, UPA 7 ministry. And we touched on the first point about myself and Brother Harrison. I would add that two other brethren were instrumental in starting the ministry, and that was Brother Mario Fanis and Brother Rene Reyes. Those were also very involved in the breakaway from Mountaindale. And again, in case some of you aren't aware, this was not a purpose breakaway. We did not intend to do this. The Mountaindale brethren and some of their reports and the comments that we had with them after the breakaway, they made the statement that we did this on our own, that we wanted to leave. It was all, prepared and everything, but no, brethren, it was not. We were forced out of Mountaindale, more or less. To briefly summarize, Mountaindale had made a requirement that you could not teach, even privately, anything other than what was the main line of Mountaindale. In other words, the fundamental beliefs, we couldn't teach that Jacob's time of trouble comes after Ezekiel 9. We couldn't teach that. And so there was a lot of problems with their demands, and so we were pretty much forced out to stand up for the truth. So anyway, that was a little background on that. Then we, of course, addressed the chariot travel situation, and we addressed the fact, we touched on the 501c3 issue. We're going to go in more in that today. We also dealt with the denying the pre 11th hour connection. Of course, we went into that briefly. It was kind of a mute point, in our opinion. And so we're going to get into the other issues that we didn't touch upon. Before you begin the video, we'd like you to pause it and kneel and pray, claim the promise of John 16:13, and he shall guide us into all truth. Let's begin. Okay, so we're going to address the issue of corrupted literature. Now, Brother Edstrom is a longtime promoter of this idea that you can see the original cover tracks, and they're black and white. You can see each one is black and white. And then you can see the cover tracks that are made largely by Mountaindale and Waco. And we notice that if you look at each track cover, the basic symbols and the words have not changed. What has changed is the color. And you can see there in the Great Controversy, the hand is giving the flesh tone color, and the original is just black and white. And the World Yesterday Today is, again, given the colors as appropriate to make the symbolism and so forth stand out. Now, we see this as pure Phariseeism, all right? Pure Phariseeism when you object to making the cover artwork stand out like this. Why? Because the message hasn't changed, the symbols haven't changed. It's just more of a eye-catching addition to the cover, which we feel is much like a fisherman. When he wants to catch fish, he wants something bright and shiny, right? He wants a bright and shiny bait and lure to catch the fish's eye. Well, this is the same token. We want something that will be eye-catching and bring the brethren in to open these pages, to read them. And that's the main key. Read the words. The words have not changed in this track, and this track, and this track. Every one of the tracks. There's no such thing as called corruption in the writings. All right. So He does make a point about font. All right, font is an issue. We'll touch base a little bit here, but anyway, this is the uh, assumed corruption that is brought out by UPA 7. Now, we had posted this post, I believe, many years ago on Hear You the Rod blog. I suppose this is where UPA 7 got this picture from. And of course, they use that to say, see, he's got Donna Dare books, and they're teaching all about Donna Dare by sending these books out. You got Waco tracks here that are not the right size. They've been colored in. They're all, corrupted and so forth. And so let's address this real quick. Now, we do send out symbolic code blue book now and then. We don't do it on a regular basis, but we do once in a while. And this brother Wilford, who is our Kenya representative with some of his brethren, Sister Neria, I don't know the name of this brother here, but Brother Wilford has done a fantastic job, a great dedication job in the Kisii area, Kisii city of Kenya. And so he knows very well, and we explain this to the brethren every time we send this blue book out, that you should not pay attention or use any of the new codes as inspired. All right, we make that disclosure. So it's not like we're sending it to him and say, oh, read it all and you can use it all for your studies and all that. No, we're not so sloppy to do that. We're very attentive. And besides that, we like the format, the way Brother Dare put this symbolic code together. And so we make disclosures on what to be careful of and what to ignore that's not part of the inspired message. So these brethren all know about that. Brother Wilford is very good about, relaying this to the brethren and when they discuss it and all that. So this is something that Edstrom apparently doesn't realize that we are doing. And he just makes a blind assumption that, they have this book and now they're going to start teaching the new codes from this book. No, that's not the truth. The truth is that this book has the original codes and is good for the brethren to study and learn. And I will say another thing. If you read the new codes, you in fact go into a learning experience. You learn more about the deceptions. You learn more about the the additions from Sister Hadaf. And I'm just making a note right now. We're going to go ahead and put a link in the description box for the new code report. We have a report on the new codes in case some of you would like to read that. That was quite interesting. We had members of the groups all over the world. We had Mountaindale, Salem group, Waco. Some of these members of these groups attended. And of course, many of the independents, even Brother Edstrom himself was on 2 or 3 of the meetings. And so we did have quite a few correspondence with the brethren, and we went over line by line the new codes, and we found out what's truth and what's error. And because it's a mixture, obviously we can't add that into the bowl. You can't be adding a mixture of truth and error into the golden bowl. And further, we know very well that was not authorized by Brother Hadaf. So that's a little disclosure on that. Now, the couple other things that we have sent in our packages is the Davidian testimony. Again, we like this because it does give some good history of the Davidian movement. Yes, Adair, puts his slant to it. But again, brethren, we go back to the fact that Jesus made the promise, I shall send you the Spirit of truth, and he shall guide you into all truth. So we take that promise and we trust it, so that anytime this kind of material is sent, the Spirit of truth will guide, and they will be shown, what's truth, what's not truth. And of course, many of the brethren that we send that out to are very aware that the new codes are not part of the message. And so anyway, this is a very good history lesson in many ways, and that's why we send that out. And this one here, again, this is from Salem, and this is one of the finest indexes we have ever discovered. Yes, it does have index references to the new codes. But again, we make that disclosure. Whenever we send this out, we make sure that the new codes are not proclaimed or taught or, viewed as inspired or anything like that. So we want to make sure that we get that disclosure out there before we send them. Then the brethren are very aware that, this index, which goes into so much references into a certain topic, is so handy, brethren. When you do a report, and we've said this many times, I always start with this first. All right, I'm doing a subject on a topic. I'll go in there and see what the rod said about that topic first. And there might be 10, there might be 20 references. I have to type or print them out, read them, and assimilate that before I do the report. So again, this is so handy. Now, UPA 7 does make a scriptural index without the new codes, and we commend them for that. But that's not to say this is corrupted, all right? If the brethren are given a disclosure, and I'm not talking about just a quick little disclosure, a detailed disclosure of why they cannot be, going into the new code references in this index. They're protected. They know what to look for and what not to look for. So again, Brother Edstrom is not seeing the full picture here, and we like the quality of this. It's so much better than UPA's little black and white stapled together or whatever it is scriptural index. And so again, we don't mind sending this out as long as disclosures are made. Now, a sister recently wrote us, and she had a good question. She says, "Why are you sending material, specifically the tracks from Mountaindale and Waco, and why aren't you doing it yourself?" Well, we addressed that. We thought we would duplicate it and put it in this report. For now, we need to supply our brethren with some literature. Yes, there are error in some doctrines, but the words of the message in the tracts, etc., are not changed from what the prophet wrote. This is important. We trust that the Spirit of truth guides, and that even though it may be from another organization, the ones that listen to his voice stand firm in the truth and are not sidetracked by error. For example, some of the error from those organizations, they're teaching error teachings coming from the new codes. Some like to say, oh, they produce corrupted literature. It's not original. But the fact of the matter is that many came into this message from material from Salem, Don Adair's organization, which has tons of literature error and corrupted, uh, you know, has corrupted the message. Waco and Mountaindale, they produce material that some now call corrupted, which means the outside cover has been colored instead of the colorless cover in the original, and the font changed. Now, to us, this is Phariseeism. Not only does it beautify the artwork cover, it is eye catching, much like a fisherman uses a shiny bait to catch fish. If I wrote to you like this, now you see it's slanted, it's highlighted, and so forth. It's a different font, right? Would the meaning change of what I said? Of course not, brother. The font means nothing as far as the meaning of the words. That's important. The fact is that the message, words, is the same from Mountaindale and Waco based on the original writings. And for now, until we get the publishing department fully functional, we have to provide the message of the hour. And in my opinion, these organizations produce very nice tracts and even a small 12-inch chart pamphlet, which is very handy. Let's touch on this real quick. We were making good progress in our ministry to publishing, but unfortunately we had the disruption with a brother that was teaching falsely, and of course he had the Hispanic brethren as well that were on his on his side as far as the teachings go, and they were integral in our publishing department. So we had to kind of start over, and so we're working on that as we speak, and hopefully very soon we'll be able to start putting out our own tracts and literature and so forth. I came into this message from literature from Mountaindale, yet I continued to listen to the Spirit of Truth, and after a while became aware of the issues that that organization has, new codes and changing our fundamental beliefs. As we study to show ourselves approved, we soon realize more error from truth. more truth from error. Praise the Lord for this Spirit of Truth guide. So again, pre-11th hour bases its view on this matter is that the Spirit of Truth shall guide you, and if you're obedient, you're dedicated to the message, you're doing what the message calls for, that Spirit of Truth is going to be your guide. And so we're not going to doubt that any brethren that come in contact with error are going to be snagged if they have the Spirit of Truth working for them. All right, if they're got a lot of problems, in debt, involved in repeated, you know, disobedience and so forth, and not paying the tithes, and all these different things, the gift of the Spirit of Truth may not be working for that brother, and he may be snagged. All right, so it depends on your walk. It depends on how close you are to adhering to the walk, if that Spirit of Truth will guide you. All right, so now let's go on to the next part that we need to address, and I believe that we're touching on the 501c3 issue. All right, so the organization in 1860 to 1863. In February 1860, James White, in the Review, wrote of two pressing issues that were looming on the horizon: the question of legal ownership of property and the question of choosing a name for the scattered company of believers. One followed from the other, as it was not possible to legally incorporate without a name. The strongest opposition to this at that time came from Roswell F. Cottrell, 1814 to 1892, who was convinced, now watch this, we got this highlighted, who was convinced that legal incorporation would lead the church into unbiblical alliance with the state. Does that sound familiar, brethren? That's repeated today from UPA 7. The same argument Roswell Cottrell used against Brother White and Sister White. Remember now, Sister White was 100% behind what Brother White was doing. In his view, this was akin to becoming Babylon. His solution was for individuals to continue holding property in their own names. James White did not concur with Cottrell. He replied in the pages of the Review, describing instances in Millerite movement in which people had apostatized and taken Millerite property, which was held in their name, with them. A few weeks later, White wrote a more extended reply to Cottrell's views. He cited a situation in Cincinnati where the believers had constructed a meeting house and placed the ownership in the name of one of their number. All was well until the brother went astray and locked out the congregation, and the place built and consecrated for the worship of God was turned into a vinegar factory. Apparently, the congregation built another house of worship, placed it in legal ownership of another brother whom they thought they could trust, but he played a similar trick. Now you'll notice that each of these have numbers: 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. We're going to, in the description box, cite those references so you can review it for yourself. So here, this is very powerful, brethren, that yes, Spirit of Truth was guiding them. The Lord was guiding them to do some protection of these shenanigans. And so this is a good thing that the Lord led them to do. Ellen White supported church organization incorporation. Now, we Googled, and today Google is very vast. It will search all the Ellen White writings. It will search much of what you want to in a matter of a few seconds. It's just amazing. I guess this has to do with AI as well. But anyway, we Googled, did Ellen White support incorporation? This is what came back. The Spirit of Prophecy, SOP, a term often used to refer to the writings of Ellen G. White within the Seventh-day Adventist Church, did not condemn the early pioneers for incorporating the church. In fact, Ellen White and other leaders recognized the necessity of organization and legal incorporation for practical reasons, such as owning property and managing church affairs. Reasons for incorporation: property ownership, Without legal incorporation, the growing church could not legally own property such as publishing houses and places of worship. Legal standing. It provided a necessary legal personality to manage the expanding operations and resources of the church. Structure. Formal organization was needed to manage the movement effectively as it grew beyond a small, loosely knit group. Ellen White's stance. While some early Adventists were hesitant to form a formal denomination due to their Millerite history and fears of becoming Babylon, Ellen White supported the move towards organization. She and her husband, James White, were instrumental in spearheading the efforts that led to choosing the name Seventh-day Adventist in 1860 and the formal organization of the General Conference in 1863. And we make a note, no Spearprof writings were ever produced that specifically spoke against incorporating. As stated in part 1, the 100% rod-only brethren came straight from Brother Hoddif's tutorship. Now, that's important. Remember, these leaders, Warden, Bingham, Green, all these main leaders were directly from the tutorship of Brother Hoddif. And what did they do? They found it proper and necessary to incorporate for necessary protections and benefits afforded from the government. So, obviously, brethren, you see two powerful points. Spirit prophecy backed it up, and the early 100% rod only group backed it up. So, if you're going to say that the Lord wasn't leading these groups, what are you doing? You're a ship without sail, right? You're just wandering out there in the ocean. No, you've got to believe the Lord was taking charge here. And these weren't these individuals' own moves. They were being guided by the Lord to do this. So this idea that, oh, you're incorporated, now you're with the state, you've got to be under their control, you're going to be limited, you can't do much, they're going to have their hands in everything you do. That's a lie, brethren. It's a lie, okay? You get maximum protection, hardly no interference with the spreading of the message. That's the facts. All right, so let's go now to the pre-11th hour ministry versus UPA 7 tithe teaching. Here we see the long proclaimed and taught lesson that this widow provided, right? She was down and out, only had a couple pennies to her name. And what did she do? She came in there and put the 2 pennies into God's storehouse. Now, what was that storehouse? It was the Jews' storehouse. Yet Jesus did what? Oh, no, you shouldn't do that. You're putting money into bad people. They're teaching against me, and you shouldn't do that. How dare you do that? No, he commended her in front of his apostles. Come over here and take a look, brethren. And he commended her. Now, that just shows you many lessons. We've had a presentation on this in our channel, but this gives powerful evidence, brethren, that God leads the church in one storehouse. Even though that storehouse may be air-filled, it's still under probation. All right? It's still under a certain time to come into line in the truth. And this is the position it was right then and there. The Lord was long-suffering with his people and allowed this tithe situation to come into an air-filled organization. Okay, so remember that lesson. Now, this can be applied all the way down to our day, and we're not going to have time to touch on the last point of God's history because that's an extensive subject, and we're going to do that in part 3, which we think will probably conclude the series. But this is a powerful lesson, brethren, and let's look at this further. Now, we have a contract. The Lord sticks out his hand, right? And says, shake my hand, we can have a deal. And what is that deal? Malachi 4:10. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and try me now in this, says the Lord of hosts. If I will not open for you the windows of heaven, and pour out for you such blessing that there will not be room enough to receive it. Malachi 4:10. Oh, brethren, every time I see this, I get chills down my spine. You know why? The Lord's asking him to try it. Test him. All right? Test him on this. And that's why I'm saying this is a powerful promise of the Lord. I personally have experienced it. My personal business is appliance repair has just boomed over the many years, and particularly the last year or two. I don't know what happened, but everybody and their brother, I was telling my wife, I said, this is almost too much. I can't handle all this business. But it's a good thing. We managed to do it. And again, we believe this is a payback of the contract we make. And that is able to be given to each and every one that takes hold of this contract, that shakes his hand, says, yes, Lord, I'm in. Let's do it. And let's look at what this means to return it to his storehouse, to his house. First question is, how about, making my home the storehouse, produce the message, go according to my best ideas that spreads this message. Obviously, this brother was sending a quote or a question into Brother Hodoff, and he was familiar with the message because he wrote to Brother Hodoff and asked this question. Now, look at inspiration, what it says. Question 97. Is it scriptural for one to retain and personally use this tithes and offerings in order to carry on the gospel work in his own community according to his own plan? Answer. Nowhere in the scriptures do we find permission to use the Lord's money at our own discretion. The only justification for so doing would be sheer inability, for some reason, to send it to the Lord's storehouse. Should one voluntarily, though, engage in such a practice, then he would set the wrong example before others. And if following his lead, others assume the same right, their course must inevitably result in seriously handicapping the Lord's work, bleeding and subverting his treasury, and thus disorganizing his work and reducing the church to a mere shell. While her members are hiring themselves as laborers in the Lord's vineyard, helping themselves to the Lord's money, and running without having been sent. What a Babylon that would be. Though the Lord commands, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, Malachi 3:10, he does not say to bring all the offerings. Thus, he shows that if we would engage in some personal charity or missionary activity, we should sustain it from the offerings, not from the tithe. Now look at this last one. This is a warning, brother, in this one particular area of the rod. What is it? You've got to be faithful. And angels keep a faithful record of every man's work. And as judgment passes upon the house of God, the sentence of each is recorded by his name. And the angel is commissioned to spare not the unfaithful servants, but to cut them down at the time of slaughter. And the crowns they might have worn, had they been faithful, are put upon the heads of those saved by the faithful servants. Testimonies 1, page 198. And again, that's can be found at 4 Answer, page 44 to 45. Let's now talk over the highlighted areas. Now, we know in the scriptures, again, you won't find any permission to use the Lord's money at your best discretion, right? Oh, I think this is the best way to go. I'm going to do it. Forget about this number 97 here. I don't think that's accurate or applies today. I'm going to do the best I can with the way I understand it, with the way I see it, right? In other words, you're using the money at your own discretion, and it says nowhere are you ever given permission to do that. While her members are hiring themselves as laborers in the Lord's vineyard, helping themselves to the Lord's money and running without having been sent. What a Babylon that would be. So, brother, we can't be hiring ourselves, and we can never make a justification. Oh, I'm producing the original rod. I am special. I am doing the Lord's work. Therefore, I can pay myself. I'll keep the Lord's tithe, support this work. I'm paying myself. Brethren, this is not what we're told we can do. Then the next one is yes, you have a favorite charity. You have someone you think is really needing help. You have a person engaged in a certain type of health ministry or whatever it is. You're free to give them offerings. All right, you're free to do that. So the Lord opens a little window for you there. That's beautiful, but don't do that with your tithes. And the last one is, as we went over before, this is serious. We better get this right. Why? Because if we don't, we're going to be cut down in the time of slaughter. Very serious, brother.
So, what conclusions can we face?
All right, brother. The next slide we're going to go over Brother Edstrom and UPA 7 direct teachings on this. Now remember all that you read here and see if this compares to what UPA 7 is now teaching.
So what conclusions can we face? Now, in the scattering time of Zechariah 13:7, Davidians should establish storehouses around the world to reach Mother, according to 7 Testimony, page 140. What's holding you back? Are you afraid? Fear God. Cease ye from man whose breath is in his nostrils. Have faith. Get on your knees. Pray much. Ask God to give you courage to step forward and put your foot in the river Jordan and to take this message to the far reaches of the earth, to do that which is in front of you. You don't need to wait for some location in America to send you contaminated literature. Wherever you're located, with simple equipment, a few group of people, even yourself, in a cave or a hideout or a garage, can print the literature on demand, all of it, as much as you need. If there were 1,000 Davidians doing this, take the numbers, 20 million divided by 144,000, that's like every leader, every 144,000 would have to reach at least 6,500 7-day Adventists. How are you going to do that? You can't wait on man to provide it for you. Let God provide. Print that literature and get it out. Go to the street. Lay siege on Mother. Hit the sidewalk. Go to sessions. Go to camp meetings. There's a ministry, siege ministry, that goes to churches every Sabbath. Protests. Get the original Rod literature. Go discuss with the people. Agitate minds that would otherwise sleep in slumber. Brethren, anybody can do this. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait and be a follower. Be a leader. If you need help, we'll teach you how to be a leader, not a follower. There's no need today to follow GAD-SDA headquarters, their man-appointed executive councils, their man-made bylaws, and their misapplied names of Mount Carmel Center. Break free. Leave them alone. They have proven that they're in apostasy, and they refuse correction. They don't listen to any counsel. They're proud. They continue to justify and go about their own ways, just like Saul, and soon they will be dismissed. So don't follow and support them. Go forward in the fear of God and do the work He would have you to do. If you don't know, pray. God will make it known. The 144,000 are trained to be as leaders, not followers. It takes courage to be a leader. Ask God to give you that courage. Don't depend on man to do the work for you. God's people are not to be incorporated with the state as 501c3 organizations. This is total apostasy. Operate independently, even out of your car or your garage. Return your tithes to God's true storehouses, not some man-controlled associations. You'll be held accountable to God for this. And for those that would rise up and object, oh, well, your home is not to be a storehouse. Excuse me, this is completely naive and ignorant of our history. Do you not know that in the period of the scattering time after Brother Haddock died, when faithful Davidians reorganized in 1961 to publish the original Shepherd's Rod on through the 1970s and 80s, that almost all of this publishing work, these storehouses, were done out of private homes and garages? Wake up. Okay? It's not that the home makes a storehouse. It's the publication of the Shepherd's Rod literature, regardless of where it's done, whether it's a cave, a garage, or your bedroom. So stop focusing on peripherals and vain justifications to support greedy dog ministers who eat up the vineyard and take all the tithes to enrich themselves and leave the poor flock starved, failing to train people to be leaders, only accepting and training followers. This is ridiculous. So yes, you can start a storehouse And if you publish the original Shepherd's Rod, then you're qualified to accept tithe. So move forward. Break free from man-made justifications. Seek and you shall find.
All right, so let's talk about what we just heard. Number one, publishing houses should be established all over the world. Now, we went into this part one that we agree there is nothing wrong with this idea that there should be publishing houses all over the world. In fact, to UPA 7's credit, we highly encourage that part of their ministry, that they want to provide help. And even on their website, they give information on how you can publish the message. You got a printer and you can just start at it. So we always and have always supported this idea. In fact, we made a comment on the one of the joint presentations to Brother Edstrom. There was talk of us possibly getting together and joining up, and we made the comment that yeah, Brother Edstrom could be the publishing director. He's very good at that, and we would love to have him with Pre-11th Hour Ministry as publishing director. But he sounded like he wasn't interested, and I gave his reasons why. Um, if you publish the original Rod message, whether in a house, garage, cave, car, or wherever, you're entitled to collect tithes. Now, that's the big issue we have. Yes, we need to establish publishing houses around the world, but we don't ever believe what UPA 7 is teaching. That, oh yeah, I'm an individual. I've set up a little uh, portable printer out of my car. I'm traveling around the world. I'm publishing the message. And when I stop, people give me tithes. I can collect them. I'm a self publishing house that's able to collect tides. Same way with a guy in a cave, although I don't know how you can get electricity to a cave. Uh, and then, you know, house, garage, wherever, you're entitled to collect tithes. Now, brethren, that is strictly something we warn against, and that's the big problem we have with UPA 7. God has given up on corporate leadership, instead wants individuals today to be his storehouse. Again, we will get more into the God's history, and we'll talk about the correct leadership today. Malachi 3:10 promise now means you can hire yourself and receive blessings promised. So we know that God, when he made that, bring all the tithes into my house, uh, didn't mean keep the tithes yourself and do the best thing and you'll get so much blessings. That's not what the promises mean, brethren. Number 5, the counsel given in For Answer, page 44 to 45, was applicable only in Brother Hoddif's time. Today, we are no longer bound by this as we are in the scattering period. So that's what they teach also. Well, when they look at that, cannot my home be the storehouse? That was applicable to Brother Hoddif's time. It's not applicable today. And he takes out of context the idea that the early uh, pioneers after Brother Hoddif were uh, coming out, their offices were coming out of homes and so forth. Correct. But that's not what the intention of answer 44 to 45 means. It's not that. It's about you being able to collect tithes for doing what you think is best. And, whether it's producing the message or whatever, you can now say that I can collect tithes. And that's not what that counsel tells us. So, uh, there's much more we could talk about, brethren, but let's look at this last very good counsel here. The most common cause of doctrinal confusion among Bible students lies in their so very frequently failing to view a subject in full perspective from the writer's point of view, a failing which results in their seeing it from some foreign standpoint, so narrowing their view that instead of gaining the writer's idea on the subject, they gain a false idea on it. And if their idea be to their liking, they magnify and zealously promote it as truth. Whereas if it's not to their liking, they vigorously oppose it and they lay it to the responsibility of the writer. Track 3, page 91. These pretentious procedures are calculated to demonstrate his scholarly attainments in hope of lending to his false idea such an appearance of authority as to compel their acceptance by all who come in contact with his theory. Track 3, page 94. So we see that, unfortunately, UPA is teaching a theory. It's based on their theory that you can collect tithes if you publish the original Shepherd's Rod. And pre 11th hour is adamantly against that. And I will say that Mountaindale, Waco, even Salem and Basham again are against that as well. So UPA is unique in this teaching, and they believe no more corporate structure. God has abandoned that. He's now working with individuals all over the world to get this message through, and so forth. So, again, in part 3, we'll go more into the history, and that'll give you a better knowledge about where should you be sending the tithes and how can you identify his storehouse today. These are very important questions. Brother Edstrom says you cannot identify the storehouse because it's all been disintegrated. God has kind of lost control. He just let everybody do their own thing. He's privately discussing and talking and supping with all the individuals around the world to get this message across. That's Babylon, brethren. It is Babylon, and that's what it's turned out to be, Babylon. Such confusion, such going against the straight cancel of the message. And so that's why we advocate the brethren on UPA 7 to take a good hard look at what's going on here. And you're always welcome to join our studies. We have a Sabbath study, in fact, coming up in about an hour. You can go on our website. We'll post the link in the description box. Every Sabbath we have our lessons, and you can feel free to join us and just learn a little bit more about what we're doing and so forth. So this concludes part 2, brethren, and we'll get to part 3 very soon. And we hope that you've been uh, blessed and enlightened by this subject and this presentation. We want to clear it because we had to address it. This brother has accused our ministry of working for the enemy, right? So we had to stand up against it. So until next time, may the Lord continue to guide you into all truth. Amen.